Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to a new episode of Bracket Science, the college basketball podcast. I'm Brandon Jadich. I'm going to be your host here. We are back for a new season of college hoops. We're getting close. We've got about 75 days left. Yep, 2.5 months until college basketball will be underway on that November 5th. I am pumped. Everyone else should be pumped. We got a lot to look forward to. So we haven't talked for a while. It's been a couple months. We're now going to start talking about the 2025 season. Many other influencers out there have been coming out with their own stuff. They've been coming out with some of their rankings finally. Today, we're hopefully the first. I haven't seen anyone else do it other than Lenardi and maybe the guy from CBS. We're going to do some bracketology today. I know, as silly as it sounds, it's not bracketology. Bracketology is based on stats, some of the KenPom stats, some of the net rankings and stuff like that. But today we're just going to do a bracket prediction for next year. And what this is going to do is this is going to help us get in depth to going into just some of the teams that we're going to talk about, who you might be seeing as one seeds. Some teams in here you will find out that there's one notable team I'm not going to say, we'll get to it in a little bit, that I don't have in my prediction that might be a top 25 team come next year in the preseason AP poll. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about my bubble watch as well. There's some teams where it's like, what do you do with them? What do you do with Louisville? Is Louisville under Pat Kelsey going to make it in their first year? Is Michigan going to make it in their first year under Dusty May? Got some of the wild card teams that are always good, but their team just isn't that great this year. So we're going to dive into some of those teams, who some of those teams are. And, of course, we always just end up finishing our show with some of the national championship odds as of right now. We're strictly just going to talk about who the favorites are, I guess, in this episode. It's going to be a shorter episode, but we're going to go through my bracket breakdown that we're going to be posting tomorrow. It'll be tomorrow, or when you hear this, today. It'll be on Saturday, August 24th. We'll release it. We'll get a ton of hate for it, but no big deal. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but the one fan base, they're going to hate me. They're going to hate me. Before we dive into it, let's give a quick shout out to Fanatics. We just want to give a quick shout out to our glorious sponsor, Fanatics. They are always running deals on Fanatics.com. Sports memorabilia, jerseys. It's college football season. We got college basketball in 2.5 months. Get your jerseys, dive in your stuff. Use the link below to get access to everything that Fanatics has to offer. Always running deals right now. They're currently running off 25% off site-wide. Everything on the site is 25% off right now. Don't miss this deal. Get it in the description. You'll see it below. It's highlighted. All right, quick ad. Now let's dive right into it. Our number one overall seed, and it was just back and forth on who I really wanted to do. I started with Kansas, moved to Alabama, moved back to Kansas. I think it's got to be Kansas going into next year. I know there's some questions about what's going to be going on with Hunter Dickinson and DeJuan Harris and KJ Adams. They've all returned. They returned from a not so great team last year for Kansas standards, I guess. But the questions are on Dickinson. Is Dickinson a winner? We know he's a stat sheet patter. He puts up numbers. He's probably going to average about 18 and 10 this year. But is he a winner? We're going to find out this year because their roster is absolutely loaded. The addition of A.J. Storr, Rylan Griffin, Zeke Mayo coming from South Dakota State, along with freshman Flory Badunga, Raquise Passmore, also a freshman. They also got in Shaquille Moore from Mississippi State. A.J. Storr and Rylan Griffin and Zeke Mayo are the guys who are going to have to step up in that huge role. Remember last year we talked about their shooting guard spot that just they couldn't figure it out. It ended up being Johnny Furphy, who ended up kind of, second round, early in the second round. Wasn't a great college basketball player. A.J. Storr, Rylan Griffin, and Zeke Mayo are all proven great college basketball players. So this team is stacked. They were not deep last year. This team is absolutely loaded going forth this year. We'll see what they can do right now. I have them as the number one overall seed. I think it's more likely, based on the schedule, that they turn out to be the number one overall seed outside of between them and Alabama. I think those are the two top dogs right now, quite frankly. You can throw Houston in there Even though I know Duke's a favorite and you can't bet against UConn, but I think right now it's Kansas and Alabama. Kansas's schedule is an absolute gauntlet this year. They get Howard to open up. Okay, not a bad mid-major team. They're projected to win by 26, according to Bart Torvik. So they should win. Then North Carolina and then Michigan State. Two kind of blue bloods. North Carolina definitely a blue blood. Michigan State blue blood. Up to you guys. Those are the two or your three first games. That's pretty tough. That is incredibly tough. If you sneak both of those, they'll probably be preseason number one. Actually, I'm going to say it. Kansas is going to be preseason number one. If they win both of those games, they will be preseason number one by a long shot. Then you get Oakland and UNC Wilmington. Hey, Oakland beat Kentucky last year, and so did UNC Wilmington. Two teams both beat Kentucky in the season last year. Then they go Duke, Furman, Creighton, Missouri, NC State, and then Brown caps off their non-conference schedule before diving into the Big 12 play, which is going to be absolutely ridiculous this year with Kansas, Houston, Iowa State, Gonzaga didn't move in. Arizona moved in. Arizona, Baylor. That is going to be a spectacular conference this year. I think Kansas has all the opportunity. Kansas, they're going to play 31 games this year. If Kansas goes 25-6, I'd say they're probably the number one overall seed in March Madness next year. But hey, Houston might have something to say about that as well. As mentioned, our next one is Alabama. Now, Alabama is not ranked too well over at Bart Torvik. They're actually ranked 8th right now, and they're number 1 or 2 on pretty much everyone's bingo card this year. They return Mark Sears. Mark Sears may be the preseason player of the year. He probably won't be. I think it'll be Cooper Flagg. But Mark Sears is right there in the top 3. Cooper Flagg, Mark Sears, and R.J. Davis from North Carolina are all right there. They also return Grant Nelson and Latrell Wrightsell. They bring in they also return Jaron Stevenson, I should mention that, but they bring in a stacked transfer class along with the freshman in Darian Reed, who is going to be an absolute stud. The transfer class highlighted by Cliff Omori. This is what they needed. Last year, they could score the ball with just about anyone, including UConn. They showed that for a while. They just didn't have any sort of defense down low. Grant Nelson was having to step in and play the 5. Now, he's 6'11", but he's a thin 6'11". He's not a defender. Cliff Omori, he averaged over 3 blocks a game last year. This is exactly what they needed. This is one of my best transfer fits that I actually talked about the other day just on our Instagram. So if you want to check that out, go ahead. Link will be below. But Cliff Omori, great fit. Not the greatest scorer, but they do not need any more scoring. You can trust me on that one. They also bring in Chris Youngblood from USF, who can just light it up from downtown, which is exactly what Nate Oates and this Alabama team will do. Then they brought in Aiden Holloway from Auburn, transferring over in-state. Don't know. Can't imagine what that's going to be like when Aiden Holloway, if he's in the starting lineup, gets announced when they return to Auburn. That's got to be ugly. Alabama, though, something about these top couple teams, absolute gauntlet of a schedule as well. Now, you start off UNC Asheville, Arkansas State, McNeese. You might think those aren't great games. Yeah, UNC Asheville's always solid. Arkansas State, I actually have projected to win their conference right now. McNeese has put together one of the best mid-major classes in the entire nation. But then after that, it just gets ridiculous. Purdue at Purdue, Illinois on a neutral, Houston on a neutral, North Carolina at North Carolina, and then home against Creighton. Wow, 5 games in a row of 5 probably ranked teams in a row. Nate Oates always does it. He does a spectacular job. Then they close out North Dakota, Kent State, and South Dakota State should get through those 3 fairly easily, I would expect, before getting into the gauntlet of the SEC schedule. The SEC and Big 12, I can say it right now, will be the 2 best conferences. I still believe, last year it was Big 12, I know they didn't have that team that went all the way. They might have had Jamal Shead not gotten injured against Duke, but the Big 12 was the best conference last year. All the way through, I think it was the best conference. I can confidently say that. And then maybe the Big East or SEC. This year, it's going to be the SEC and the Big 12, the 2 top dogs. They'll put together 8, 9, 10, even 11 bids per conference. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to follow these two conferences. Alabama, just like Kansas, you put together 25-6 with this schedule, you're probably the number one overall seed. Moving on to the third one seed, we already mentioned it. It is Houston. Houston, no surprise, is already ranked number one over at Bart Torvik, which is where they just stay because they play such great defense. They blow out the teams that they should blow out. They don't lose bad games. Kelvin Sampson is underrated, as crazy as that sounds. He was the coach of the year last year, and he's underrated. He is spectacular. Nobody talks about him. He is phenomenal. Houston will be led by L.J. Cryer coming back for his second year in the system after transferring from Baylor. L.J. Cryer is an All-American candidate for sure. The starting five will be L.J. Cryer, Emmanuel Sharp, who comes back, who is a nice player, who's a very good player. Jawan Roberts is back, along with Xavier Francis, also back. Two guys, 6'7" and 6'8", not the biggest, but physical, big bodies, will rebound. Xavier Francis will definitely rebound and block shots. Then they brought in Milos Uzan Miles Uzan. I'm not sure how he pronounces it, quite frankly. But they brought him in over from Oklahoma, from Porter Mosier's squad. He fits that Jamal Shed role pretty well. He's not Jamal Shed. Not many people are Jamal Shed. He was a one-of-a-kind. But also coming for Houston, which is not actually a new player, but it's a returnee who didn't play last year, is Terrence Arsenault because he got hurt early in the year. So he is going to be a big piece in this year. He may, watch out for Terrence Arsenault. He may, I know I said no one is Jamal Shed. He is a very similar player to Jamal Shed. Now he's a little bigger. He's 6'6", but he's just feisty, great defender. So with those six, it's pretty solid. They also got Malik Wilson, Joseph Tugler. They also have a pretty, it's not as good as the other ones, but they got a pretty good non-conference schedule. Start off with Jackson State, and then they have a neutral against Auburn. That'll be a fun one to start off the year. They're actually favored by 4 right now. Houston is over Auburn, but 2 just kind of just stat sheet stuffers in terms of KenPom and Torvik. They love it. Then they got Louisiana Lafayette, Hofstra, and then it gets kind of tough. They get Alabama. Obviously, that's going to be tough. Hopefully, that would be cool if that ends up being a 1-2 matchup in the AP poll. Not rooting against Kansas, but if Kansas were to lose one of those first 3 games, I mean, that's definitely it could happen. So that would be kind of cool to see. That game's going to be on November 26th. And then Butler is right after that, another solid program. Butler has some high expectations this year. Patrick McCaffrey coming in. Then they kind of close things out, kind of weak. Troy, Toledo, Texas A&M, Corpus Christi. Some solid mid-major teams, but yeah, so it's an average. I'd give it an average non-conference schedule. Auburn and Alabama, 2 schools in Alabama, and then plus Butler. It's okay. I like what Kelvin Sampson does over there. He kind of just, a lot of people are criticizing some of the Big 12 teams just in general, even this year. Last year, definitely with just scheduling week out and going into the conference. I mean, the Big 12 is so loaded that it's like, why not? Why not get your team ready? Don't play any games where you don't. Last thing you want to do is go into Big 12 play, I don't know, 7-4 or something, But then I get where the other side's coming from. There was Oklahoma who went into, I think they went into Big 12 play undefeated, did they? Or it was something. No, they lost to North Carolina in the jump, man. But going into that, they started off like 12-0. They were like 10th in the nation. Then we saw them just fall apart. So I get it. You want to schedule some games, but I like how Kelvin Sampson has done it here with Auburn and Alabama. I think that'll be some good tests there, obviously. Now my 4th 1 seed is going to be an unpopular opinion. I got Gonzaga. Hot take right now. I think Gonzaga goes 18-0 in the West Coast Conference this year. I think they do it. I'm pretty sure St. Mary's is, they're obviously just the other guy who battles around. All right, I'll give them 17-1. I'll say Gonzaga goes 17-1, and I'm not sure one of those losses is going to be against St. Mary's. Gonzaga returns just about everyone from their Sweet 16 team last year outside of Anton Watson. They bring back Ryan Nembhard, Nolan Hickman, Graham Ike, Ben Gregg, Braden Huff, Dusty Stromer, Steele Ventures, who did not play last year. But they also bring in Khalif Battle and Michael Ajayi. This team is deep. This team is talented. This team is really good. And they're just flying under the radar. They're actually ranked number 1 projected right now, obviously, in terms of offensive efficiency at Torvik. So this team has some skill. What I need to see from them and what I think I might see, I know Graham Ike is their star. He's just not that kind of guy who can just really, like, he can take over a game against some of the you know, who's a prime example in their conference that they would play against. He can take over against the Pepperdines, against the Pacifics, the Loyola Marimounts, where he can just dominate and go for 35. I'd like to see that guard really step up, though, and it might be Khalif Battle. He can score it with the best of them. He scored 42 in a game last year for Arkansas. Michael Ajayi, coming from Pepperdine, he was the leading scorer in the conference last year. He can also really score the ball. He'll be more of a small forward sort of role. But can Nolan Hickman and Ryan Nemhard really pick up a little bit? We'll see. It's Graham Ike's team. He is the best player on the team, but I need to see that one more guy really step up. And this team, they're a national championship contender. I fully believe that. No one's really talking about them. I am so bought in on Gonzaga this year. Now, they always schedule tough in the non-con because they're not in the strongest conference. Obviously, they'll start off with Arizona State. That ought to be fun. That'll be a good one. Then they take on, I mean, it's just a gauntlet to start the schedule. San Diego State coming off a Sweet 16, coming the year after going to the national championship. West Virginia, who should be improved because of Darian DeVries and his son Tucker DeVries. Then they do get Kentucky once again, just like last year. Remember, they picked up that huge one. Remember, Gonzaga was on the bubble last year? Crazy to think about. We were talking about if they didn't go into Rupp and beat Kentucky, they might not make the NCAA tournament. They beat them. They ended up a 5 seed, ended up beating McNeese, beating Kansas, made it all the way to the Sweet 16 for like the 8th or 9th straight year, whatever that crazy stat is. Then they do get UConn on a neutral as well. This one will be in, I think it's in Madison Square Garden. Don't hold me to that. I'm pretty sure because last year they did it in Seattle where UConn went in and just beat up on Gonzaga, quite frankly. This year, neutral at UConn. Don't be surprised if Gonzaga goes in. It's not at UConn. It's it'll be a semi away though. It'll definitely favor UConn, obviously, if it's in New York. Don't be surprised if Gonzaga goes in there and beats them. Then they get Nicholls State and then UCLA, who should be very improved, also on a neutral, before getting into the heart of their schedule here. Now they play. Do they play 20 games this year? I think they play 18. I'm pretty sure they play 18 this year. Torvik has them projected at 15-3. I think it's going to be better than that. Give me 17-1, even 18-0. I can see it happening. I think Randy Bennett's St. Mary's squad is going to be down. I think Gonzaga ends up as a 1 seed this year. Now, the first 2 seed is Duke. I do give it to Duke. There's been a lot of debate. Duke, North Carolina. Obviously, it's all going to be Cooper Flagg. He is incredible. Don't get me wrong. He is incredible. They did that coaches poll, that coaches candid series over at CBS. Matt Norlander wrote an article about it. He did a great job, and basically it's just a bunch of unanimous coaches. They just vote on who they think the best player in college basketball is going to be next year. Cooper Flagg won that vote. It is not often that a 17-year-old kid wins the vote to basically be the preseason player of the year, according to the coaches. This is ridiculous. I mean, he is a star, don't get me wrong. What he needs is just that help coming around from him. And I think they got some good pieces. Now, I will say this. Tyrese Proctor was so disappointing last year, but the talent is there. The kid can really score the ball when he does. He's got a pure jump shot. Hopefully, with Cooper Flagg getting all the attention, he'll free up Tyrese Proctor a little bit to make some shots. They also bring in Kaman Maluak, who is the 7'1 senior, or 7'1 freshman, not a senior. He is just that big body. I mean, they have all the pieces. He's a stud. He's a stud. They also bring back Caleb Foster, who a lot of people think is going to get drafted. I don't see it, but we'll see. We'll see if he can really take off this year. Then the transfers coming in were also Sion James from Tulane, Malik Brown from Syracuse, Mason Gillis, remember that name, from Purdue. Then they also have some more freshmen in Isaiah Evans, Con Canupel, Patrick and Gamba, who we're talking about just some other freshmen. These are all top 40 recruits. These are all incredible basketball players. I mean, this team is 1 through like 10 or 11 is just stacked. It's absolutely stacked, but we'll just have to see. We'll have to see. Will all that attention to Cooper Flagg really, kind of screw things up? We'll see. John Shire always schedules a great non-conference schedule. This year they go Maine, Army, get Cooper Flagg involved. They actually go to Maine, which is where Cooper Flagg is from, so that's kind of a cool little start to the season. Then they do get Kentucky. That'll be a fun one on a neutral in the CBS Sports Classic, or in the Champions Classic, in the Champions Classic. Then they go back to home at Cameron against Wofford. Then they go at Arizona. Remember, Arizona went to Cameron last year and beat them. Now they get the chance to return the favor. I think they do it. I think they go beat Arizona. Then they got that neutral against Kansas we already talked about. Then they get Seattle. And then they play at home against Auburn. That's a fun one. So you got 4 or 5 teams in here that are pretty loaded before getting into to ACC play, who they will start with SMU. Remember, SMU's in the ACC. I think it's close between them and North Carolina. I'm not even going to get into that discussion. It's 50-50 on who I would vote for to win the ACC. Right now, I have it as Duke. That might be some bias, not bias, just some feelings of getting talked into that, I guess. I'm not biased towards Duke. I'm bought into the hype, I guess. We'll see. Moving on. Next up, we have the UConn Huskies projected to win the Big East. As expected, they are spectacular because of Dan Hurley. Alex Karaban returns. He is the only starter who returns. And then things get a little bit iffy. Aiden Mahaney coming in from St. Mary's. We'll see about that one. Hassan Diarra will step up. He was the 6th man of the year last year in the Big East, coming in to play point guard. I like Hassan Diarra. Terrace Reed, I don't know. I'm not going to doubt Dan Hurley because Dan Hurley's awesome, but I don't know. I do love Liam McNeely. I think Liam McNeely's going to play very well. Freshman, 6'7", good shooter. It's going to be Solomon and Ball and Jalen Stewart who really have to grow, just like Tristan Newton really grew in the system. I mean, everyone grows in Dan Hurley's system. It's going to be Solomon Ball and Jalen Stewart this year. They also got Samson Johnson back, who I expect to start at the 5. I don't think Terrace Reed is going to start. I don't think Terrace Reed is that great, to be honest. I don't think he's bad, but I don't think he's UConn level. I think Samson Johnson will start. Then freshman Ahmed Noel also will hop in there. Their non-conference looks pretty good as well. They start off with Sacred Heart, New Hampshire, let things mesh, and then they go Memphis, Baylor, Texas, Gonzaga. Yikes. Tough scheduling in there. Home against Baylor and at Texas. So that's technically home against Gonzaga, I guess, if it's in Madison Square Garden. But that's a gauntlet of a schedule. Memphis should, hopefully, I pray for Penny Hardaway's sake, win the AAC this year. Baylor is going to be a top 10 team. Texas will be a top 25 team. Gonzaga will be a top 10 team. That's pretty good. Now, I do think the Big East is going to be a little bit down this year. I think they're going to be deeper, but it's going to be a little down this year in terms of how top-heavy they were last year with Creighton and Marquette. So I still give the benefit of the doubt to UConn. It's not my favorite roster, but let's give them the 2 seed right now. Now, we're not going to go over all of these rosters, I promise. I'm just doing the 1 and 2 seeds, and then we'll get into the rest of the bracket and some of the bubble teams. So the next 2 seed I have is Baylor. Baylor is actually ranked 14th at Torvik, but this is my kind of just pick as of right now of I love how that team fits together right now. All because they brought in Jeremy Roach and Norchad Omier, 2 proven players. Norchad Omier, I think, is going to absolutely pop off this year. Give me 17 and 10 from him at Baylor in the Big 12. Jeremy Roach, I think he is what he is, but what he is a good basketball player. BJ Edgecombe, the freshman coming in, will coexist with Langston Love and Jaden Nunn, along with Rob Wright coming in as a freshman. Josh Ojianwuna is going to have to make a big jump. I think he's probably going to start at center, play Norchad Omier at the 4, and then VJ Edgecombe at the 3, and then take your pick of Langston Love, Jaden Nunn. Probably Langston Love. I don't know. Take your pick of who starts at the 2. I think Langston Love was a 6-man last year, so maybe he'll stay there. And then Jeremy Roach at the 1. I love that lineup. I love how it fits. We'll see if they can put together. I trust Scott Drew with my life. They also have a great non-conference schedule. They start off the season with Michigan State. I love that. Absolutely love that. Then they go Sam Houston State. Sam Houston State is going to be good right now. You'll see them in this bracket in a little bit here. Then we go Tarleton State. Not a bad school. Then they get Rick Pitino and St. John's on a neutral. That'll be fun. New Orleans, UConn, at UConn, as just mentioned, and then Abilene Christian. As of right now, that is a fun schedule. Now, the final 2 seed that we're going to talk about is North Carolina right now. Yes, North Carolina fans, don't hate me too much. I have you and Duke as a 2 seed right now. It was tough. It was tough. You'll notice I did not say Iowa State. Might get me some hate, but we'll talk about that here in a second. RJ Davis is the guy. He will potentially be the preseason Wooden Award Player of the Year. We'll see. It's going to be him or I think it's going to be him or Cooper Flagg. I don't think it'll be Mark Sears, but hey, I've been wrong before many times. They also bring back Elliot Cadeau, who might be in ready for a nice little breakout sophomore season. Then they got freshmen Ian Jackson and Drake Powell. Love them both. Love them both. I think they both fit. These were underrated pickups in my opinion. Then the transfer Cade Tyson from Belmont can really shoot the 3, stepping into that Cormac Ryan type role. Said it before, I'll say it again. I think Cade Tyson is better than Cormac Ryan. Van Allen Lubin, the transfer from Vanderbilt. And then Seth Trimble's back. People forgot about Seth Trimble. This backcourt is spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. They got RJ Davis, Elliot Cadeau, and Seth Trimble, along with Ian Jackson and Drake Powell, who can kind of fluctuate to the 3. I love it. I love it. Now the questions are in the front court. I think Jalen Washington will start with Jalen Withers coming off the bench, or Van Allen Lubin might start. I'm not sure what they're going to do with this, quite frankly. They all seem very similar players to me. I don't think it's as bad as people think. I think Jalen Washington and Jalen Withers are both solid. So we're going to see what they do going forward. I'm not even going to make a projection on there because I quite frankly have no clue. Their non-conference is also very well. Hubert Davis is never afraid to schedule. They start with Elon, as it feels like they do every year. I don't know why. But then they get Kansas, as mentioned, and then it is a home and home, so it's at Kansas. Then they get American, Hawaii. Okay, then they get Dayton in the first round of Maui, and then they get that Alabama game at home. That'll be awesome. Then they get LaSalle, Florida, UCLA. That'll be nice, and then Campbell rounds out their non-conference schedule. All right, thanks for bearing with me there. Those are the top 2 seeds that I have right now. No, I didn't say Iowa State. No, I didn't say Arizona. No, I didn't say Auburn. And no, I don't have any Big Ten teams in there right now. So yes, some things might change a little bit once we start to get a little feel. But right now, this is what I think it's going to be. Now let's go region by region, starting in the South region, where we already talked about Kansas and North Carolina. The 16 seed, as of right now, I have a play-in game between Fairfield and Norfolk. That should be fun. I would hope that Fairfield ends up here this year. They deserve to be there last year, and they just didn't get it done. Norfolk, you can just scribble them in. They basically always end up winning the conference. In the 8-9 game, I have Illinois as the 8, Ole Miss as the 9. Ole Miss could jump up as high as maybe a 5 or 6 seed I could see. I can really see a Chris Beard breakout year. Illinois, a lot of people really hate their roster, and a lot of people really like their roster. So I'm kind of neutral on it. It's obviously not as good as last year's roster. Still think it's solid. I'll give them an 8 seed right now. We'll see. At the 5 seed, I do have Arkansas. John Calipari squad. How do you really rank them? I'm not sure. This team is incredibly talented. But can Calipari put the pieces together? I think. If I had to guess, I would say I bet 5 is about the average seed for them right now. If I had to guess, people putting together bracketologies, bold take, I think they end up around a 3, maybe even jump into a 2. I mean, Arkansas fans are in. They are in on this squad. We'll see how they do. At the 12 seed, we do have Princeton. Princeton winning the Ivy League. Thought they were going to win the Ivy League last year, but Yale ended up winning the Ivy League, got to 13 and beat Auburn. So you never know. As the 4 seed, we have Tennessee. Another one of those teams where it's like, really, what do you do with them? You know, they got a lot of turnover. They're losing Dalton Knecht. They're losing Jonas Adu, losing Toby Owaka. They still have Zakai Ziegler, which will help, along with Darlin Stone-Dubar and Chaz Lanier, the transfers from the mid-majors. That seems to be what they're going after. We'll see if it works out. I could see them falling a little bit lower this year, maybe down to a 7 seed or so. But I trust Rick Barnes with my life. I have them taking on the 13 seed Sam Houston. Remember I said we were going to talk about them? I have them winning the CUSA this year. At the 6th seed, I have Kansas State. I think Kansas State bounces back and gets in the tournament this year. Taking on the 11 seed in Providence. I think Kim English gets in for the first year. So you'll notice this is on my bubble watch. Providence, one of the last 4 teams with a bye. The 3 seed, I do have Auburn. I have Auburn in this 3 seed. I think they'll end up being a 3 or a 4 again. If I had to predict throughout the season, as of right now, I'd have them a 3. 14 seed taking on UC Irvine out of the Big West. UC Irvine should have got in last year, and they didn't. So we'll see if they can do it this year. At the 7-10 game, this would be a fun one. Two completely new teams, Kentucky and Michigan. Kentucky, Mark Pope's squad. A lot of people don't expect Kentucky to get in this year in the first year under Mark Pope. I think their roster's solid. I don't think it's as talented as Arkansas, but hey, BYU was a 6 seed last year, and they should not have been a 6 seed last year with that talent. But I still have them in here. And then at the 10, Michigan, we'll see what Dusty May can do. This is a tough one to pick just because how do they correlate? But I love Dusty May. He's got some pieces. I mean, he's got Vlad Golden back for him, so he's been in the system. They also got Danny Wolf, Roddy Gale from Ohio State. We'll see how that works out. And then we already talked about the 2 seed in North Carolina. We have them taking on the 15 seed Lipscomb. We'll see if Lipscomb can get back in the tournament this year. Moving on to the Midwest, we already talked about Alabama and Baylor in this one. Got Alabama taking on the 16-seeded Weber State, however you want to pronounce it. Damian Lillard's old school. In the 8-9 game, yes, this might shock some people. As an 8 seed, I have Grand Canyon right now, taking on the 9 seed Michigan State. This might really make some people mad. Michigan State at the 9 seed. I don't think their roster is very good. Now, once again, I think they get in because I trust Tom Izzo with my life. Michigan State was a 9 seed this year, and their roster was much better than it's going to be next year. So I trust Tom Izzo to get in, but I think Grand Canyon might go undefeated in the WAC potentially. And Michigan State, I think they get in, but I'm just not really that high on their roster. I know Michigan State fans are really optimistic that I think some sports book came out and Michigan State was like the favored to win the Big Ten. And hey, the Big Ten's going to be a little bit, they're not going to be very top heavy at all this year. So if you're going on coaching, might not be a bad bet. Moving on, number 5, Texas. We have Texas as a 5 seed taking on the 12-seeded High Point. High Point is miles above anyone else in their conference. I'm fairly certain they will be predicted to get in, but we'll see if they can pull it off this year. Texas, Rodney Terry squad, can they put it together this year? We'll see. They got the late transfer of Arthur Kaluma. They've got a solid team. We'll see if they can do it. A team that I think will be better than Texas this year is Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is an absolute sleeper this year. I could see them making a little Final Four run. I have them as a 4 seed. This will be unpopular. You'll see them as a 6 or 7 seed most places. I think Texas Tech is going to be spectacular. Second year under Grant McCasland. Bradley as the 13 seed. We'll see. We'll see about that. That conference is always, who knows? Drake is obviously going to be down. They lose their coach. Josh Schertz is going from Indiana State as well. So who will end up winning the Missouri Valley Conference? We'll see. We'll see. 6 seed, we got Florida. The Florida Gators Todd Golden squad. A lot of people really like Florida this year. I do too, to a sense. I don't really like what they did in terms of the transfer portal. Picked up Elijah Martin. Not my favorite pickup. They already have Walter Clayton Jr. and Will Richard. The pickup of Elijah Martin's sketchy. I think he'll start. But I'm kind of holding on for Florida right now. I'm not too sure really what to think about their squad. Remember last year they had the real late injury to who was it? Aberdeen, Denzel Aberdeen. Is that who it was? I can't even remember who it was. No, it was, I don't even remember. I don't remember. Someone got hurt real bad in the SEC championship last year against Auburn, but he returns. They got Alex Condon back, Thomas Hall. They also bring in Oliver Rook. If you haven't heard his story, he is 7'9". We'll see if he gets any action. He's like the tallest college basketball player of all time, so we'll see about him if he can step in and be a little Taco Falls sort of thing. I got them taking on a first 4 game, the winner of Maryland and Louisville. Maryland fans are pumped for this season. We'll see. I have them as a bubble team right now. In Louisville, I trust Pat Kelsey as that was my favorite hire in the offseason. I can firmly believe that. I think Pat Kelsey would be my pick as the guy who I think will end up having the best career at the high major level. I think Louisville has a great chance. I like their roster too. I think they have a great chance to get back. The thing that's helping Louisville is the ACC is not going to be very good this year. I mean, you're going to have Duke and North Carolina, obviously. Virginia, Miami, Clemson, Pitt are all kind of in the same boat as Louisville. If Louisville ends up being the third, fourth, fifth best team, I think they get in. I really do. So we'll see. As the 3 seed in the Midwest, I do have Iowa State. Iowa State fans, don't hate me. I think there's some regression coming. I didn't think the team was as good as it was last year, but they just kind of just kept winning. In terms of talent-wise, I should say. Obviously, they were a really good team, but in terms of talent-wise, I didn't really see it. They're going to have probably the best defense in the country, so maybe that's why it's not real eye-pleasing to the eye test when you're just strictly a defensive team. But we're going to see them back in the tournament this year for sure. I have them as a 3 seed. They'll probably be projected as a 2 seed in most people's. Winning the Ohio Valley Conference for the 14 seed, I have Morehead State. We'll see about them. In the 7-10 game, I got the 7-seeded St. John's, the Johnnies Rick Pitino squad. I think they're going to be really good. I think their ceiling is about as high as a 3 or 4 seed. I think they could be really good, but they got to mesh. They're Devin Smith from Utah, along with Kaderi Richmond. Kaderi Richmond will be, I think, an All-American on some sort of team, but we'll see. They're going to be quick. They're going to be fast. Devin Smith, I love Devin Smith. 10-seeded, taking on Memphis. Memphis' ceiling is very high, I will say. Their floor, it can also be very low. We saw it last year, not making the tournament. I mean, this year, without FAU being in there, they should win the American, I would hope. But we'll see. Amir Abdur-Rahim is still at USF. It should be Memphis. But we'll see. I don't, quite frankly, have that much trust in Penny Hardaway. I don't think he's a very good X's and O's coach. But he gets guys. And they got guys this year. They got Tyrese Hunter from Texas. So we're going to see about that. Now, we talked about 2-seeded Baylor. I have them taking on 15-seeded Cleveland State. I think Cleveland State wins the Horizon this year. Moving on, we talked about Houston being the 1 seed in the West, taking on the 16-seed South Dakota State. Whenever you see the Summit League and you're filling out a bracket, just fill out South Dakota State. They are the best team pretty much every year. I'm just going to fill them in. For right now, I think they're going to be there. Now, here's the take that's going to get me canceled. Creighton as the 8 seed in the 8-9 game. A lot of people are going to have Creighton top 15 in terms of their preseason AP poll. I do not like. I don't know why people do. Quite frankly, I don't see it with this team. Now they're 13th at Torvik right now. Stephen Ashworth as your point guard just really scares me a lot, very much. I mean, their starting lineup is going to be, now it's going to be experienced players, which is why people are going to have them up there. It's going to be Stephen Ashworth, Ryan Kalkbrenner, who I love, by the way. I had him as a first-team All-American preseason as of right now. So Creighton fans, don't get too mad at me. I love Ryan Kalkbrenner. I think he's awesome. Pop Isaacs, not my favorite. Jemiah Neal, yeah, okay. And Mason Miller, who, quite frankly, he was the 5th starter last year. He was not good. He had a couple games where he'd go like 2 for 2 from 3. Other than that, he just really didn't contribute. He was just kind of a body out there. Sometimes it's good when you have Baylor, Shireman, Kalkbrenner, and Trey Alexander. You can do that. What scares me is I think Pop Isaacs, you know what you're getting. You're going to get some scoring. You're going to get not the greatest three-point percentage, quite frankly, I think, in this system. But Stephen Ashworth running point just really scares me. He's really fast. I like him as a small 2 guard to shoot the 3. They're going to have to find scoring somewhere, and Ryan Kalkbrenner is – I think Ryan Kalkbrenner averages like 19 and 12 this year. I mean, he's going to be ridiculous because I think he's kind of got to carry this team. I don't really like this roster. I think they're going to run into some troubles in the Big East this year. I really do. They're not very deep again, which is okay. They still have Frederick King, Isaac Trott. I'm not a fan of this roster, and I'm sorry, Creighton fans. I love Greg McDermott. I'm sure Greg McDermott can put it all together, but right now I got him as an 8 seed. The 9 seed, I have Oregon, who has sneaky Final Four potential written all over them. They obviously went on that run last year. Man, I wish they'd have gotten Fale Dante back for this year. They do have Jackson Shelstad and Kwame Evans. This team's going to be fun. They're going to be a fun team. I'm not sure how to really rank them in the Big Ten. I don't know if they're top team in the Big Ten. They got the transfer of TJ Bamba. They still have Brandon Angel, Bartholomew, Jadrian Tracy also there. We'll see. We'll see. I'm holding out hope on Oregon. I think if they put this all together, they got a lot of talent. So we'll really see. Next 5 seed, I have Indiana, the Hoosiers. The Hoosiers better be back in the tournament or it will be Mike Woodson out the door, which I honestly think they should have did before this year. But hey, when you bring in that much talent, he did a good job in the offseason. So shows what I know. Taking on the 12 seed McNeese back in the tournament out of the Southland. They should get there. Will Wade squad. We'll see. 4 seed, I got Texas A&M. Wade Taylor, the fourth, has sneaky All-American potential as well this year. Really excited to see what this team can do. This team got hot last year, almost beat Houston. They probably should have. Honestly, that crazy shot. Bring back Wade Taylor, Anderson Garcia, Zurich Phelps, Manny Obaseki, Solomon Washington, C.J. Wilcher. This is a good team. This is a very solid team for Texas A&M. Got them taking on 13-seeded Vermont. Just like we mentioned with South Dakota State to just fill them in. Same thing goes for Vermont. I think they've made the tournament 4 years in a row out of the American East. I fully expect them to be back this year. They're the best program, got the best coach. I think they do it. At the 6th seed, I got Ohio State getting back in the tournament. I love Jake Diebler. I think Jake Diebler will do a solid job. I think he's a motivator. He brought in guys. They believe in him. They got all the money in the world. I think they should be solid and somewhere in the middle of the Big Ten this year. Taking on the 11 seed Miami. I think Miami gets back in the tournament. Now, Miami was so disappointing last year. I picked them to win the ACC, and they came in like 14th. Embarrassing, horrible take by me. I think Miami gets back. I like the addition of Lynn Kidd. Jalil Bethia, he is going to be spectacular in that system. I fully believe it. I like this team. I like this team a lot. Nigel Pack got another year there. We'll see what they can do. 3 seed. Next, we have Arizona, also out of the Big 12. Remember, Arizona's in the Big 12. Yes, they are. Taking on 14-seeded Arkansas State. Then the 7-10 matchup, I got 7-seeded Virginia. I think Virginia has a rebound year. Get them a 7 seed. I could see them sneaking. This was going to be another record this and come back to me when it's just horrible. I think Virginia could end up being as high as like a 2 or 3 seed. I think in Tony Bennett's system, I think they should be the 3rd best team in the ACC, whatever conference they're in the ACC this year. But we're going to see. I have faith in Tony Bennett. In the 10-seeded Mississippi State, Chris Jans, I think he gets back in the tournament again, but I think it's as a higher seed again. And we already talked about UConn. I have them taking on the CAA champ Drexel. I got Drexel this year. Remember, no Pat Kelsey at Charleston. Charleston might still be the favorite, but we'll see. And we already talked about Gonzaga being my 1 seed. I got them taking on the 16 seed. The play-in game of Wagner and Southern. Kind of 2 teams who solid programs, but I think Gonzaga runs away with it. Taking on 8-9 seeded either BYU or Wake Forest. That would be a fun matchup. Wake Forest, can Steve Forbes finally get back in there? I think BYU gets it done with Kevin Miller under center this year. I think Kevin Miller's done a spectacular job. They retain some talent. I think BYU gets back in. I really do. I think they get it done this year. I think Kevin Miller is going to really surprise some people and be one of the better hires this offseason. 5-seeded UCLA, yes, got Mick Cronin's squad coming all the way back and making the tournament. Taking on 12-seeded VCU. I got VCU winning the A10 and getting in. You will notice no Dayton. I do not have Dayton in this. I don't think Dayton's squad is at large worthy because I think VCU's team is going to be really good this year. I think Dayton's going to be solid, but I don't think they're at large good yet. Zedke, Posh Alexander, we'll see. 4-seeded, I got Marquette. I got Shaka Smart's squad getting back in. Cam Jones, sneaky All-American kind of guy. He's might average 19, 20 points a game this year. He might be the leading scorer in college basketball this year. Watch out for Cam Jones. Taking on 13-seeded Buckyball Samford. Got Samford making their way back as a 13 seed once again. Then the 6-seeded Xavier Musketeers. Give me Xavier. I love what Sean Miller does there. I think Sean Miller is one of the most underappreciated coaches in the entire nation. I think they got the roster to get back there. They bring back Zach Fremantle, who's been hurt last year. I think Xavier's a sneaky good pick to win the Big East. We'll get into that in some of our best bets podcast coming up. 11-seeded Pitt taking on Rutgers. Will Pitt get in? Did Pitt get gypped last year? I don't think so. Some people do think so. I really don't think they did. Rutgers, what do you do with them? Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, I got them kind of getting there. We'll see. I really don't know what to do with them. I think if I had to bet, I think if they're plus money to miss the tournament, I will bet Rutgers to miss the tournament, as sad as that sounds. But hey, you never know. They could absolutely pop off and get a 5 seed. You never know. Then I got the 3-seeded Purdue, who I do have Purdue winning the Big Ten. I think they're still the best team. They got the best coach in the Big Ten. Well, Tom Izzo's still there, but Matt Painter, fantastic job. And then I do have Akron winning the MAC this year. I think Akron gets back for the second straight year. And then in the 7-10 matchup, Cincinnati. Got Cincinnati as the 7 seed, the most anticipated Cincinnati basketball season in a long time. Season tickets sold out. That's incredible. Good for Cincinnati. Love seeing them back on the map. Against 10-seeded Boise State. Yes, this is the only Mountain West team I have in. Sorry, San Diego State. We'll talk about you in a second, I promise. Got Boise State winning the Mountain West and being that 10 seed. And then 2-seeded Duke, we already talked about taking on 15-seeded Colgate. Just put them in. They win every single year. Just put them in. That was a lot of talking. That was the entire bracket. Let's move on to the bubble. Now, we already talked about some of these teams. We talked about Mississippi State, Michigan, Providence, Miami. Those are my last 4 buys. The first 4 games, so the last 4 in, Maryland, Pitt, Rutgers, and Louisville as the last team in. Now let's talk about the teams that are out. I know Clemson fans, that's the team I was referring to. They're not in. I don't have Clemson in right now. This is my hottest take all year. The 2 teams I think are going to disappoint this year, Creighton and Clemson. We're going to see. Now, Clemson's expectations are a little bit different coming off of an Elite 8 last year. Losing P.J. Hall and Joe Girard, Brad Brownell is a spectacular coach. I don't see it with the roster this year. A lot of people really like Chase Hunter. I think he's going to average a lot of points. I just don't think he's that guy to really just take off. I think they end up 6th or 7th in the ACC, and I don't think that's good enough. I think Clemson due for some regression this year. I'm sorry, Clemson fans. I really love Clemson. I love Brad Brownell. I rooted for him all year last year. I just don't think I see it this year, and I'm sorry. But the first team out I do have is St. Mary's. St. Mary's roster is not very good this year, but it's a system. It's a system, which is why I'm so hesitant to put them out. Randy Bennett does spectacular. They play so slow, but they win games. So it's like, what do you do? They're not going. This is not one of their best rosters, obviously, if I have them out. But we'll see about them going forward. I do have NC State on the outside looking in right now. NC State was not a tournament team last year, like not even close, not even considered on the bubble, and they made the Final Four. So they proved me wrong. I'm just throwing them right here for now. We'll see what they do. I didn't think the roster was very good last year, and I don't think the roster is very good this year, but we'll see. We'll see. And then South Carolina. I'm sorry, Lamont Paris and Lamont Paris fans. I love Lamont Paris, so I would not be surprised. I think I put them as my sleeper team in one of our breakdowns because they are. They really could end up being another 5 or 6 seed because they have a spectacular coach. In terms of the roster, it's not my favorite. I probably wouldn't even have them in as next 4 out, but I'm just giving Lamont Butler the benefit of the doubt. So we'll see. Now, this is the next 4 out, and this is the pick that I'm not confident in, is having San Diego State in the next 4 out. Their roster is not good this year. It is not good. Brian Dutcher is spectacular, though. They're going to play defense. They're going to rebound. They always get in. Somehow, San Diego State is always the best team in the Mountain West. Like, even last year, they didn't win the Mountain West. They didn't win the regular season. It was Utah State, but they just still were the best team. They made it the furthest in March Madness. They made it to the Sweet 16. So I'm not confident in this pick, but their roster is just not great. But I'm sure Brian Dutcher will find a stud in there. And this as mentioned, I'm taking the heat on this one. I don't like where I put them there, but we'll see. Next up is Villanova, Kyle Neptune squad. And if this happens, bye-bye Kyle Neptune. Thank God. It has been so rough. I hate seeing Villanova not at the top of the basketball world. They won 2 national championships in 3 years, just like 6-7 years ago. That's ridiculous. They got Wooga Poplar in. They still got Eric Dixon. That's a nice little 1-2 combo. They better make the tournament or oh man, Kyle Neptune's just going to get so much hate. And I feel bad for him because he did such a good job at Fordham, but we'll see. Next 4 out, also TCU. We're going to see about TCU. I really like Jamie Dixon. I think he's a spectacular coach. He always does more with less. The roster isn't so spectacular, but we'll see. Then rounding out the next four out is Missouri. We got Missouri as our last team out as of right now. They didn't. If Missouri fans are mad at me for keeping them out, they didn't win a game last year in the SEC. They brought in a great transfer class, like a top 5 transfer class. So we'll see. Is Dennis Gates good? Is he horrible? We don't know. He was great the first year. Obviously, things didn't work out last year. I don't think that team was as bad as you think last year. I know they ended up, what would they end up, 0-18 or 0-16? I don't know. Whatever it was ugly, but we'll see. We'll see if they can get things turned around. All right, that's the bracket preview. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Don't hate me too much. I'm sorry, Clemson fans. I'm sorry, Creighton fans. If there's any more teams you think should have been in, I went through every single one of the teams. I predicted out all the winners of every conference. We'll see. Now, maybe you're a huge MEAC fan or something and see someone else you think's going to win. You don't think Akron's going to win the MAC? Let me know. You don't think Moorhead's going to win the OVC? Let me know. We'll see. We'll see what I can do about squeezing some of these teams and predicting them out, because I quite frankly couldn't tell you probably any people of the starting 5 on Arkansas State. I've just kind of looked through what I see and some experience. I think Arkansas State wins, but yeah, we'll see. We'll see. So let me know. Last thing we're going to talk about, just the current national championship favorites. In terms of this bracket, it would be 2 2 seeds and a 1 seed. Kansas, UConn, and Duke are tied at the top at plus 1,000, according to FanDuel, as the favorite to win next year's national championship. So if that means anything to you, those would be your 1 seeds. And right after them is Alabama at plus 1,300. So that would be your 1 seeds. Sneaky good bets. Gonzaga plus 2,000. I love it. I love it. Same goes for Baylor plus 2,000. I absolutely love it. Houston plus 15, plus 1,600, depending on the sports book. I love it as well. I think those teams have upside potential. It's very rare. Last year we had the 2 best teams in the country play each other in the national championship. That rarely happens, but so, if you kind of want to take someone who's a Gonzaga, who's got high upside, you'll see. That's going to do it for us today. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for everyone who stuck with me. Please be sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Bracket Science with 2 S's. Hopefully you enjoyed the new graphics, the new music. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're listening, go check out the YouTube. Go subscribe, hit the follow. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're on the go follow us on Apple, Spotify, whatever you want to listen to it on. We appreciate you all being here with us. It's coming right around the corner. See you later. Have a great rest of the week.